What's up, guys? PDC here, and we're going to be continuing part 2 of our competitive guide with part 2.5, which is still focusing on team preview, but instead of win conditions, we're going to be focusing on set guessing. Now, of course, when you're playing, you will naturally see the sets revealed as time goes on, but it's better for you to assume or at least guess about what the sets could be and have an idea about what they look like. Now, of course, this is all going to be conjecture. You can't 100% know what the sets are going to be, but based on metagame trends and just general synergy knowledge, you can probably make some correct assumptions about what your opponent's sets are going to be. And that's very important to do in competitive Pokemon because you don't want to be the last guy to a party. You don't want to be the guy who's only figuring out when you have to switch something into it what set this could possibly be. This goes in, it's very related to the, approach that I took last video where I just said, yeah, don't just look at the team preview. Really take it in. But we're going to be going over 3 replays today, 3 teams. And I'm not going to be doing like 6 or a million because, like I said, I want it to be a shorter video. And I think set assuming is pretty straightforward, and it's really, really dependent on how the metagame is actually at that moment. It can change a lot, and this isn't for the actuality. Like, I'm not being like, okay, in Gen 7, this is how you guess sets, because that's pretty temporal, and overall, it's very fleeting, the trends in the metagame, so for what it's worth, this is all just for theory, and looking at these teams is really just to have you guys, to give you guys a trial and see what I do, and see if you can, in the future, in your own games, take the same techniques. So we're going to start off with this team, the Lopunny, Kyurem, Lendo, Pex, Heatran, and Mew. This is from October 2017. All of these games are going to be from Snake, around the latter portion of it. These are also going to be Sun and Moon, not over Ultra Sun and Moon. So looking at this team, Badusha's team, we notice that it's bulky offense, stuff like that. What I'm talking about here when I say guessing sets is it's not going to be concrete, but you can probably get a pretty good idea of the sets of a team. So looking at Badusha's team, we can probably determine that Lando is going to be Scarfed, and that Mew is going to be Bulky Defog, and Toxapex is probably going to be T-Spikes. T-Spikes recovers Scald or something like that. We know that Pex is going to have moves like that. Looking at this team, we also know Mew's obviously going to have Defog because he has a Kyurem, and his team doesn't really like Spikes or Hazards all that much. So right off the bat, we can kind of assume the sets of the team. And then we have to assume something like the Z-move, because almost every single team, not all teams, but almost every team has a Z-move user, and for Badoosh, that mon is going to be either Tran or Kyurem, because Lando is almost definitely Scarf. I know it's because, for one, Lando's a great Scarfer, and every other Pokemon on his team is not a great Scarfer. And U-turn is really good for something like Kyurem, as fast U-turn especially, a fast, strong U-turn. So it's also possible that Mew might have Volt Switch for momentum gaining, but right now we just can assume that we know that Lando is Scarf, we know that Pex is defensive, Mew probably is Defog, it might have Rocks, but I would probably lean towards more the Heatran having Stealth Rock. And the Lopunny is probably going to be a pretty standard set based on offense, beating up teams, which it benefits from getting an easy switch in from U-turn and the possible Volt Switch from Mew. And then you have Kyurem. Like I said, it was either between Kyurem and Heatran. And I would say that on this team, Kyurem is the Z-move user. This is a pretty standard team. It's pretty easy to guess, and most of your games are going to be kind of like this. They're not going to be a very hard guessing game, because if you're playing in a ladder or low-level tournaments, you're going to be facing standard teams. You're not going to be facing surprises. And this is easier than DBP because you know outright, what the team is. I would say that guessing sets is probably a little easier than guessing Mons, and you don't even have to get 100% correct either. Because you're probably never going to be able to guess like every hidden power or every single EV spread. It's just to get a general idea of the role that Pokemon plays on the team. And that's it. Team building in games where you have to, guess like which Pokemon they have. I mean, they could have, something completely opposite. The goal of their team may be completely different than what you assumed it was. You know the team, and you know the general goal. You know what type of team this is. It's a bulky offense team, and thus you can guess what the sets are. And you can accordingly, when you're actually playing the game, adjust how you play around them. Team 2, we have an ABR team with Weavile, Lando, Clefable, Pex, Scizor, and T-Tar. Now, a team like this is a little bit harder because the sets have some variance. For example, you can have rocks on Clef or Lando. I would say rocks on T-Tar is unlikely, or at least less likely. I wouldn't say that T-Tar with rocks is a great set in Ultra Sun and Moon, or any gen at all after like Gen 5. I think Rocks T-Tar is pretty outdated, especially in Gen 7. But looking at ABR's team, we can immediately notice that, yeah, this team has probably 2 U-turners in Scizor and Lando, and he's going to be focusing on Pursuit. He's going to be focusing on getting rid of defoggers like Latios or Zapdos or anything else that runs defog in its movist. You have a Weavile, which could be Z-move, but on a team like this, there's a high chance it might also be Choice Band, because a team like this is not exactly going for a sweep or using a sweeper. In fact, CV Weavile would probably be a lot better because it's fast, it has Ice Sharp for revenge killing, and it has a strong Pursuit that right off the bat it can use and, you know, knock out a Latios or knock out a Gengar. On the matter of Stealth Rock, I think rocks could go to either Lando or Clefable. Probably more leaning towards Lando because I think that this team kind of wants a defensive Lando as a good ground immunity, because even though Scizor is really strong and Clefable's no defensive slouch either, you do want a strong ground immunity on this team, and I think you also want something, you know, very physically inclined to take care of other Z Lando, etc. So it could be Stealth Rock, HP Ice, U-turn Lando, and for a Scarfer, ABR has run Scarf Rocks Lando, so Scarf Lando is still a possibility. And when you have Weavile and T-Tar on the same team, that is kind of confusing because both of them are probably running Pursuit, because you know that that's not going to be Mega D-Tar, because Mega Scizor is the obvious choice here. So it's kind of confusing what set the T-Tar is. I still am not sure if it would be Rocks T-Tar, because Rocks T-Tar is kind of a slouch and it gets taken advantage of pretty easy in this metagame. So my guess would this could be either a dual choice band, or this could be, maybe it's a Scarf Tar, because maybe Weavile is an SD sweeper, although I highly doubt that on this team. I would think it's far more likely they're both for Pursuiters and getting rid of hazards 100%. That would be my guess, and also T-Tar is potentially a decent revenge killer in this metagame, because you can kill things like Mawile with Earthquake or something like that. It's not a bad choice, and I think it's possible it could be either a Scarf, a dual choice Pursuit core. That's not really surprising, and it's an interesting team from ABR. When I see a team like this, I think most of the sets aren't really up in the air. You can guess them pretty well on more defensive teams, but they're certainly a little harder because there's a couple ambiguities here, which, while you get the general idea, you know what this team is going to be trying to do. You know it's going to be laying hazards and trying to pursue defoggers, specifically Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes. You don't know exactly the mechanisms which a team will try to achieve that goal. And while I think these 4 are pretty easy to guess, Lando, Clef, which is probably a Calm Minder or something like that. It could be actually, this could be, with Toxic Spikes, a Cosmic Power Clefable, which I think is pretty likely with T-Spike support. I think that the team's mode, you know, I think the method is pretty up in the air, but what it's actually trying to achieve is rather transparent. And that's also really important. Just looking at a team and seeing what style it is, you know, this is a more defensive, stallish team, so you know what it's trying to do. It's trying to abuse hazards and potentially use that for setup with Clefable, which makes me even more confident in the idea that Lando T is the rocker. And our last team, we are going to be looking at Feeman. I think this guy's name is Azog now on the Smogon forums, but that's not important. Toxapex, T-Tar, Mew, Lando, Coco, and Heatran. A team like this is interesting, but I also think a bulky offense team like this is relatively easy to guess the sets, or at least have a general idea of it. Looking at the team, I'm pretty sure that's going to be Defog Mew, Toxic Specs, Toxic Spikes, Toxapex, and Civitar, because that team is really appreciating a Pursuiter to get rid of Defoggers, and they need to get rid of Defoggers fast. It could be Megatar, but I think a team like this 100% appreciates Civitar's Pursuit way more. So we already have pretty much half the team down. And then you also, looking at the team, you notice that the team wants Speed Control. Now, it has Coco, but Coco, even though it's fast, is still slower than things like Ash Greninja when it reaches that form, or +1 Muns. It's not going to be the greatest revenge killer for Muns that are boosted. So I would guess that is a Scarf Landorus, and it's a Rocks Heatran. It could also potentially be a Rocks Mew, or it could be a Scarf Rocks Lando. That is also possible. Like I said, there are going to be ambiguities. You're not going to 100% be able to discern the sets of the team, but I feel like we can get a pretty good idea about what this team is trying to do. We know Coco is going to have Volt Switch. We know Lando is going to have U-Turn. And we know this team is probably going to aim to pursue Defoggers with Civitar. And it's also very possible that that is a Heatran, which is using Magma Storm. So maybe it's Stealth Rock, Magma Storm, Earth Power. That was a set, I believe, very popular in Orastro trapping, and it's not very surprising to have something like that here, because trapping other Toxapex is very important for a team which relies on having Toxic Spikes up. So a team like this, I would probably guess the Z move is on Coco. It could be on Heatran. It's one of those two Muns, almost definitely. I would think it might be on Coco, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's the more likely answer, because Heatran, usually if you're running Magma Storm, Earth Power, Taunt, Rocks, that'd be the set I would guess for it. I would say that it's probably maybe Z-Bolt. It could run a Z-Earth move, because you could kill Toxapex pretty quick. Z-Earth move, Z-Ground move, but that would be my guess. And I think a team like this, when you're looking at bulky offense, is relatively easy to guess. Because you know, once again, what it's going to be trying to do. Sets can be, you know, like I said, you're never going to know 100%, but you can get a good guess. And as I stated at the very start of this video, as the thesis basically, guess sets beforehand. This is another thing you should probably be trying to do in that block of time you are given at Team Preview, so that way you have at least an idea about what your opponent is going to be trying to do. Win conditions is one thing, and figuring out sets is the other. And more often than not, you're going to have to make assumptions about the sets to actually arrive at your win conditions. If you recognize what a team is trying to do, then you can also use that information to help you guess the sets as well. And that's the lesson you guys should learn. Now, I only did 3 here, but I ran through the teams also relatively quick because I feel like this is something that, once again, you can practice a lot with yourself. I gave you a quick rundown on these teams and looking at the Pokemon in them, what they can do. You know what Pex does, so what do you think T-Tar is doing to support it? You know what these two do, so what do you think the rest of the team is trying to do to support it? Making these assumptions is very, very important. Because no matter what, when you play Pokemon, you're gonna have to make assumptions. You're gonna have to make predictions, because not everything is gonna be concrete. You're gonna have some things that you're not certain about. What hidden power, what set, what spread. And you're gonna have to use logic and rationale to hopefully come out victorious in situations where you have to actually employ those tactics. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching, and this concludes the team preview section of the competitive guide. I hope you guys learned a lot, and if you have any questions, or maybe if you want me to do something else on Team Preview, I can in the future if anything you guys have wondered about went unanswered. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, all this stuff, and part 3 coming up soon. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.